So we know also with all this, Mason Taylor goes to the Jets. Fannin Jr., that was the kid from Bowling Green.
Yes,
he went to the Browns, which actually is where Shador is. Bring it all together. And then in the first round, Loveland went to the Bears, and Warren went to the Colts. So, Hugh, a lot of the tight ends sort of flying off the board around the second round. The Rams got one, and then by the time the Eagles got on the board again, they didn't take one. And they didn't take one the whole draft. Let's hear Howie Roseman on not addressing the tight end position this weekend.
Surprised you didn't end up with a tight end, and what kind of factored into how that laid out?
Yeah, again, just trying to be as true as we could to the board. Every time that we had the opportunity to pick, we were looking at the board and really trying to reflect what that work to put those grades in really should be reflected in the outcome. So we didn't want to kind of drop down at some points. There were some points where it was close, but it was never at the time we were selecting the best player.
All right, so Howie gives you the GM speak, the best player, board, all that kind of stuff. But here's the issue. If they're not going to keep Goedert, and it doesn't seem like they're going to, although he's still here, well, they didn't get a tight end, right? All we have is Calcaterra. So let's hear Howie on the Goedert situation. Because they didn't draft one, could Goedert come back? Here's Howie and the way he spoke about Goedert the other day.
Dallas is part of the team, as we speak. Obviously, as we go forward, we're going to continue to address things on this team, and right now, nothing further. Dallas is a heck of a player, heck of a person. Certainly don't want to do anything publicly where we're discussing anyone's business, but have so much respect for him. Been to 2 Super Bowls together, and obviously would love him on this team. You always love having Dallas on this team, but we're not there right now on any of that. But
Hugh, trying to get that money right, trying to figure it out.
What's so fascinating about the way he speaks about him is as if he's not under contract. He's on the team. Like, he talks about him like they hope to figure this out. He's on the football team right now.
Well, he's being as transparent as you can. There's a money issue.
Totally.
That they would like to resolve. I think, I'm not a capologist, but you could extend him and bring his cap number down.
You could, yep.
But I don't think they want to do that. I think that
they want to take a pay cut.
Yeah, and I don't think Dallas wants to take a pay cut. And they want him to be here. Right now, I feel like Dallas has all the power. Like, they obviously don't want to give him extended years, but they don't want to cut him either.
So I actually see it a little different. I think they're doing him dirty. The longer they hold on to him, so they just went through free agency where they didn't let him into free agency, right? Mm-hmm. So teams used their money. Mm-hmm. Now the whole draft went by. The Browns drafted a tight end. The Colts drafted a tight end. The Bears drafted a tight end. So all those spots are gone now, right?
Yeah. So you're looking at it from if they cut him,
they're squeezing him. So if they just hold him, right, and we get to June. How many teams are desperate for a tight end in June that will pay him more than them? So my view is they're squeezing him until he just says, all right, I got no other options. No team will pay me more. I'll just take your pay cut. I think they're squeezing this guy.
Yeah, but if he stands on business, it still puts the Eagles in a bad spot because if they cut him,
then they don't have a tight end.
They don't have a tight end, and he could go. Somebody will probably sign him.
But for more than he'll get here?
Well, now it's the principality of the situation. It's the principality, Smokey. It's more like, do I go back to the Eagles after knowing what they just did to me, or do I just go somewhere else? Right. You might not get the money that you want, but it might be just on principle.
It reminds me a lot of what they did this to Ertz at the end, and then they brought him into the next season. I think he came into training camp with bleached blonde hair. It was a really odd thing.
Yeah, he was
the last Ertz year here was weird.
Raging against the machine.
Yeah, and then he didn't seem happy, and then they traded him at the deadline that year after a Thursday night game to the Arizona Cardinals, and he's played 4 or 5 more years and is still a good player. But I just feel like without a tight end in the draft, it's harder on Howie to just cut him. I mean,
it is
harder.
But hopefully, I don't know. I would think that they would at least be having some type of conversation with him to let him know what they're thinking. And you don't say nothing about a guy like that. You don't give him a glowing endorsement and then, do him dirty on the back end. I don't see that.
I still want him here. I haven't changed my mind the whole time. And Hugh, if they had drafted the Fannin kid or Mason Taylor,
then it makes more sense.
Yeah, of course. Then you're like, okay, you got the next guy. You can move on. I don't view Calcaterra that way. 215-592-9494. Your thought on the Goedert situation. Eagles don't draft a tight end. For all the good things they did in this draft, and we'll talk more about the class coming up, Hugh, they didn't get a tight end. And they didn't get any sort of interior offensive lineman. Now, maybe one of these tackles can play inside, but That guard position, they lost Becton, and now what do we have? Steen and the Kenyon Green
And there's
kid?
still some moves that can be made.
Yeah.
You're going to probably bring some young cats in that didn't get drafted. Undrafted guys. So there's still some moves to be made. And then, as you know, when training camp comes around or we go through this process, guys will be cut, and they'll probably pick somebody up. So they're just waiting to see.
Those are the two spots, though, that I expected them to draft something, guard and tight end, and they didn't do either.